Watch everybody, and welcome to this drive-by evaluation of Golem, which is a decentralized cloud computation platform and network. So the idea with these videos is that I'm going to spend however long it takes, 10-20 minutes, to whip through a very quick analysis of this project based on some of the criteria that I would use for selecting centralized cloud technologies, because this is an area that sort of interests to me. I think decentralized cloud is a growth area and a very viable use case for cryptos. So let's start with the team explaining themselves. We're here 3.5 minutes of this video from 7 years ago. Let's start with this.
Golem is a creature from Jewish mythology. It's a creation of man that collects all the bits of pieces. Well, Golem essentially is made of mud, and creates something of sheer power and something that haven't existed before, and give us opportunities and possibilities never seen before.
We are quite convinced that not so far into the future, internet will be much more decentralized than it is today. And this will require new infrastructure.
And Golem seems to be the ultimate solution to this problem. Not only to distribute computation, but decentralized distributed computation.
Golem is a new way of distributing computing between computers over the public network,
where users can sell their redundant computation power to users who need it.
This means that you can compute your task on other people's machine.
Technically, Golem is a peer-to-peer network, meaning that users join on an equal basis and there's no central authority or no one is more important than anyone else.
You can use Golem for scientific computation, for AI. Artificial intelligence requires quite a lot of computation and distribute it. You can split it into small tasks. I don't know, in chemistry, for example, you can search for new molecules. Golem would do the job perfectly.
For example, when you are an artist or an architect that has created this 3D model of a house, and we like to see a photorealistic image of it. So he can use Golem, split this task into smaller parts, then send it to the network. And each person will compute a small part of the image. And they will compute this in the same time, so everything will be quicker. And then the results will be sent back on the artist machine, and Golem will put it together.
Weather modeling, folding proteins, research for new medicals,
or even mining cryptocurrencies. I would say that the sky is the limit.
Distributed computing is nothing new. You have it in a cloud, you have it even in hosting of services, you have it in a cloud storage. So what is really new that we plan to use not a bunch of servers somewhere in Google or in Amazon, but we want to give you a possibility of using the power of computers around you, contributed to the network by other people, your neighbors, or people living in the same country or in the same continent, for money. So you pay them for using their computers.
And this is where Golem, with its significantly lower prices, will be a very attractive alternative.
And of course, not we will pay the money, but other users who are in need of additional computing power will pay for using other users' computers.
The economics of our business model comes down to commissions for every transaction between users of Golem Network. So this means there will be a fee on every completed computing task, or on every unit of time software as a service is applied to complete these tasks.
Users can join Golem to become producers or consumers of computational resources, or to switch between the two roles.
This means that we will join the market of software as a service and infrastructure as a service, which could potentially grow by $40 billion over the next few years.
Okay, so I think that was a pretty good introduction from the team themselves, albeit it's 7 years old. However, having gone through the website, a lot of what they say still remains perfectly true. So let's have a quick look at the website itself. Create, compute, and earn. The Golem Network fosters a group of creators building ambitious software solutions that will shape the technical landscape of the future generations by accessing computing resources across the platform. Great. Let's have a look at let's learn a little bit about the project's history. Again, 2014, so it's been around for a long time, 9 years. It's clearly a mature project, and we can evaluate what that means in a moment. Recent events include the release of the Yagna implementation mainnet, so there have been upgrades, unsurprisingly, to the platform over that time, which is fine. Let's look at the size, let's look at the team, at the composition of the team and the size of the team. So I counted 30 people listed on the website. And with respect to the composition, one thing that I like is that it's mostly technical. There is a limited number of, let's say, managerial, human resource, and business development, legal. But the vast majority, as you can see, of the people listed here are product and tech, which is always a very good sign for a project, in my opinion. Now, some of the use cases for this platform, as we heard, you can be a provider of computational resources, or you can be a consumer, and consumers essentially pay using the Golem token. So what kinds of processes can you run? Essentially, it looks mostly like atomic tasks that you will wrap up in a Docker container. Again, tick in a box. They don't have their own unique or bespoke way of deploying tasks. It's simply a Docker container, which means that you can write your task in the computational language of your choice. You don't have to use a language that they provide, which is great. I think that helps with adoption. So you essentially create a Docker file, you provide some additional information, any inputs that it needs, and you whiz it across to the network where providers pick up the task, process it, and I imagine you'd have some ability to figure out predictively what it could cost in terms of Golem token to have your task executed. One of the things I always look for in projects is how well it's documented and how easy it is to use. And I'm happy to say that this is quite a well documented project. As you can see here, they've got the architecture diagrams that define the roles within the platform. There's FAQs here, which are, again, well written. I think no major issues with these. I managed to fire up the testnet and play around with it. So easy to onboard, relatively easy to onboard. Again, some of the use cases for this is still very much task-based, although they do seem to be working towards a service model which looks more like a stateful web application. I don't think that's quite ready yet at the moment. In terms of the payments, they are on layer 2. They're using ZK rollups. Let me have a look. I observed that, so this means that even though it's using Ethereum for payments, ERC20, it's still quite fast and relatively cheap. ZK Sync, for payments, making it fast. ERC20 token. What else is of note here? We talked about no constraints on the language that you can use, which is great. We've talked about the organization, which I think is a well-resourced and composed project. Tokenomics are important. One of the reasons I'm doing a drive-by quickly is because we have 20 of these projects that I'm going to look at, and I will be able to provide a better informed opinion of the tokenomics once I've gone through that process. But for now, the kind of things that we're looking at is, are there constraints on how many tokens that the project team gets? Is there a lock-in period? Can they dump their tokens? Are there any downward pressures on the token? How well has it been distributed? And all the details are on their own website in terms of the distribution of the tokens, and it looks like 82% went to crowdfunding participants. That must have happened quite a long time ago. 6% of the team, and 12%. My first impression is that that's pretty reasonable. No alarm bells are ringing on the tokenomics at this stage. I would want to know exactly how the crowdfunding distribution occurred. And the key criteria for decentralized cloud technologies is decentralization across the board. It's the token distribution, it's the network itself, how well is that distributed globally, it's the organization and the governance structure of the project. As a token holder, do I get a say in the platform and how it's run, that kind of thing. Another thing that I like looking at is just going to the GitHub project for this platform. So it's open source, great, that's another tick in the box. I think that's a mandatory requirement for me in terms of decentralized projects. Let's see how busy they've been. This is one thing that I look at. Okay, so in the last week, there's been a couple of pull requests, 25 issues closed. Well done to these individuals who have been working away, building on the platform. So yeah, I mean, there's some activity here. Again, when we look at other projects, we can build up a more informed opinion to see if the team is as active as other teams in this sector or not. But so far, so good. No major issues there. What other criteria would we use? So I've read the white paper. It's pretty well written. Yeah, overall, in terms of this drive-by, I think I like my first impressions of Golem Network. I can think of use cases that could be deployed onto it. It's relatively easy to use. The project's been around for a long time, which makes it stable, and it's still active. They're still delivering new things. So just before I finish up, let's look at a newer video. This was 6 months ago, and this clip I just want to play to you to round off the evaluation.
A few years ago, the Golem Network allows hosting of various applications, ranging from batch processing to service-like backends. Once the demand for computations rises, it's really easy to scale up by finding more providers to deploy additional service instances. We work closely together with Reality Games to help them take advantage of decentralized computing to strengthen their backend. Because of its decentralized nature, the Golem Network is a natural choice when it comes to hosting gateways to the blockchain. Compared to typical approaches, it is more resilient and avoids single points of failure. In other words, Golem's discovery mechanism allows it to avoid centralization points, which are typical for Web 2 solutions.
Working with Golem was great. They have an excellent team and have responded to all of our concerns we could think of. So if your company, research institute, or simply your team has an idea for a Web 2 or Web 3 project, write to venture@golem.network and take advantage of participating in a decentralized world. Based on Reality Games' experience with Golem, we know they have many ways to support different initiatives.
We look for...
Okay, so that was great. I should note, the other criteria that I use is looking at the community and seeing how active it is. And yeah, in terms of the community for the Golem project, they have a pretty active Discord and other channels as well. They run these competitions, and it's always good to get a good customer testimonial as well. They have been very responsive, actually. So what I'm hoping to do is share this video with the team and then invite them to come back and answer more questions that I'll have for them in a bit more detail. So yeah, this is my first drive-by analysis of decentralized cloud project, Golem Networks. Pretty good, and I look forward to, I'm going to invite the team to see if they can answer more questions as we move to the second phase of evaluation for this project. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you found it useful. If you have, do like, subscribe, or the usual malarkey, please, on my channel. And the next one in this series is going to be Filecoin, another OG in the decentralized cloud computation space. Thank you very much.